The neon lights of Las Vegas buzzed overhead, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the crowded strip. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that only a fight night in Sin City could muster. Inside a massive arena, the crowd roared, thousands of fans packed into the stands, their cheers deafening as the main event approached. In the center of it all was Zane, the Blade, Carter, a 26-year-old MMA prodigy with a chip on his shoulder and a mouth that ran faster than his fists. At 6 feet 2 inches, with a chiseled frame and an undefeated 18-0 record, Zane was the undisputed star of the octagon, thriving on intimidation as much as skill. Tonight, he was set to defend his light heavyweight title against a veteran contender, but the real drama was brewing backstage, where a chance encounter was about to spark a firestorm. Zane strutted through the VIP lounge, his entourage trailing like a pack of wolves. His shaved head gleamed under the lights, and his smirk was as sharp as the tattoos snaking across his arms. He was untouchable, or so he thought. The lounge was a mix of high rollers, celebrities, and industry insiders, all sipping overpriced champagne and soaking in the pre-fight hype. Zane's eyes scanned the room, hungry for attention, when they landed on a familiar face, Jason Statham, the action movie icon, sitting quietly in a corner booth with a glass of whiskey. Statham, in his late 50s, looked every bit the part, tailored black suit, steely gaze, and a presence that didn't need to shout to be noticed. To Zane, though, he was just another Hollywood star, a relic who played tough guys on screen but couldn't handle a real fight. "Yo, Statham." Zane's voice cut through the chatter, loud and brash. Heads turned. "What's a movie star doing in my world? You here to watch a real man work?" His entourage snickered, egging him on. Zane sauntered over, his massive frame looming over the booth. "Bet you couldn't last 10 seconds in the cage with me. Stick to your fake punches, old man." The lounge went quiet, the tension thick. Statham didn't flinch. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, his eyes locking onto Zane's with an intensity that made the fighter's smirk falter for a split second. "You done?" Statham's voice was low, gravelly, carrying a weight that didn't need volume. The crowd held its breath, sensing something brewing. Zane, oblivious to the shift, doubled down. "What, you gonna talk tough now? I'd snap you like a twig, Statham. Name a time and place." Statham set his glass down, the clink against the table louder than it should have been. "Careful what you wish for, kid," he said, standing up. At 5 feet 10 inches, he was shorter than Zane, but there was something in his stance, grounded, coiled, like a panther ready to strike, that made the fighter pause. The moment passed, and Zane's bravado roared back. "Let's do it then. Backstage, after my fight. I'll wipe the floor with you, action hero." The crowd murmured, some laughing, others exchanging uneasy glances. Statham just nodded, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "All right. After your fight." Word spread like wildfire. By the time Zane stepped into the octagon to defend his title, the rumor of a showdown with Jason Statham was the talk of the night. Fans whispered in the stands, betting pools formed, and social media buzzed with speculation. Zane, true to form, dominated his opponent, a grizzled veteran named Marco Silva. The fight was brutal. Zane's precision strikes and relentless ground game forced Silva to tap out in the third round. The crowd erupted, chanting, "Blade! Blade!" as Zane raised his fists, basking in the glory. But his mind was already on the backstage challenge. He was going to humiliate Statham, prove that Hollywood tough guys were all flash and no substance. Backstage, a makeshift ring had been cleared in a private training area, roped off with velvet cords and surrounded by a small crowd of VIPs, fighters, and promoters. The air was electric, the stakes unclear but undeniably high. Zane arrived first, shirtless, his gloves still taped, sweat glistening on his skin. He shadowboxed for the onlookers, his movements sharp and menacing. "Where's the movie star?" he taunted, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Don't tell me he chickened out. Then Statham appeared. He'd changed into a simple black tank top and athletic shorts, his movements calm and deliberate. The crowd parted as he stepped into the makeshift ring, his expression unreadable. Zane laughed, loud and mocking. You serious, old man? No cameras here to save you. Statham didn't respond, just started wrapping his hands with tape, his fingers moving with practiced ease. That's when Zane noticed something. A subtle grace in Statham's movements, a quiet confidence that didn't match the fighter's expectations. But Zane was too deep in his own hype to care. Let's make it quick, he said, bouncing on his toes. 3 minutes, no rules. You ready to bleed? The impromptu fight began with no referee, no bell, just two men circling each other. Zane charged first, throwing a flurry of jabs, expecting to overwhelm Statham with sheer aggression. But Statham moved like water, slipping punches, his footwork flawless, his body weaving just out of reach. The crowd gasped as Zane's fist grazed Statham's cheek, only for the older man to counter with a lightning-fast elbow that caught Zane's temple, staggering him. Zane shook it off, his pride stinging more than his head. Lucky shot, he growled, lunging again. What followed was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Statham's movements were economical, precise, rooted in years of training most in the room didn't know about. Unbeknownst to Zane, Statham wasn't just an action star. He held a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, earned through decades of dedication in private dojos, not for fame but for personal discipline. He'd trained with elite martial artists, sparring long before MMA became a global phenomenon. Zane, for all his talent, was a product of the modern fight game, brash, powerful, but untested against someone with Statham's depth of skill. Zane threw a high kick, aiming for Statham's head, but Statham ducked under it, closing the distance in a blink. He grabbed Zane's waist, executed a textbook hip toss, and sent the fighter crashing to the mat. The crowd roared, stunned. Zane scrambled to his feet, his face red with fury, and charged again, this time landing a solid right hook to Statham's jaw. Statham absorbed it, his head barely moving, and countered with a knee to Zane's midsection that drove the air from his lungs. The younger fighter doubled over, gasping, but pride kept him swinging. For 2 minutes, it was a war, Zane's raw power against Statham's technical mastery. The crowd was on edge, some cheering for the underdog, others for the champ. But something shifted in Zane as the fight wore on. His swings grew wilder, his breathing ragged, while Statham remained composed, his strikes landing with surgical precision. A spinning back fist from Statham split Zane's lip, blood dripping onto the mat. The fighter's bravado was crumbling, replaced by a flicker of doubt. He'd underestimated his opponent, and it was costing him. In the final seconds, Statham saw his opening. Zane, desperate to end it, threw a haymaker that left him off balance. Statham sidestepped, wrapped his arm around Zane's neck, and pulled him into a guillotine choke. The crowd held its breath as Zane's face turned purple, his hands tapping frantically on Statham's arm. It was over. Statham released the hold, stepping back as Zane collapsed, gasping for air. The room was silent for a moment, then erupted in cheers, not just for the victory, but for the sheer audacity of it all. Zane stayed on his knees, his chest heaving, his ego shattered. Statham offered a hand to help him up, but Zane waved it away, his pride too raw to accept. Didn't know you had that in you, Zane muttered, his voice hoarse. Statham just nodded, no gloating, no showboating. You're good, kid, he said. But there's always someone better. Remember that. He turned and walked out, leaving Zane to face the crowd's murmurs and his own reckoning. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Clips of the fight leaked online, going viral within hours. Fans debated whether it was staged, but those who were there swore it was real, raw, unscripted, and humbling. Zane's reputation took a hit, but he channeled the loss into his training, vowing to never underestimate an opponent again. Statham, meanwhile, returned to his world of films and quiet training sessions, his black belt a secret he didn't flaunt but carried with him always. For the fans, it was a story of hubris and redemption, of action and heart. For Zane, it was a lesson in respect, learned the hard way. And for Statham, it was just another day, one where he proved, without a word, that real strength doesn't need a spotlight.